Going on YouTube, Cloverbell's here back with another Scarlet Violet video, and today we're going to be talking about what I think are the top 10 teams right now prior to the World Championships, right? So as we all know, within actually just a few hours, maybe even sooner, depending on the time that this video goes up, the World Championships for this season are going to begin, from Yokohama, Japan, and this is what I believe to be the top 10 teams. You might even see some of these teams on stream, if anything, right? Depending on the player and depending on how the standings play out, of course, and depending on what players bring. But as of right now, as of this moment, this is what I think are the top 10 teams at the given moment. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through these, one by one, talk about their strengths, talk about how they function, and of course, give reasoning as to why they are one of the top 10 best, as I just said. All right, so let's go ahead and start with team number 1 over here. All right, so with team number 1, this is what we call the standard 6. By the way, these are not in like any particular order. This is just like based on numbers, okay, as far as like, each team that I go through, right? So this is what we call the standard 6. It's basically Dragonite, Chien-Pao plus 4 homies, right? And normally teams like this in the beginning of the format, they started with Tornadus, for extra speed control, but then the Tornadus kind of fell off just a little bit on teams like this, just because teams were better prepared against the Tornadus, and the Tornadus didn't really exert enough offensive pressure. It pretty much just clicked like either Tailwind or Taunt and pretty much just dropped after that. So in exchange, people have opted for the Rillaboom in that slot just to have a little bit more of an offensive presence, have a little bit more balance, round out this Fire, Water, Grass core, give the team a fake out option, and then just overall have something against like, an opposing Urshifu for that matter, right? So we already know what Dragonite Chien-Pao can do, but then at the same time, now you have Flutter Mane and Heatran, and usually one of these Pokemon has a substitute, whether it be that Flutter Mane or the Heatran. And then of course, we already know what Urshifu and Rillaboom can do. Because the Tornadus is gone from this particular archetype, now you might see Urshifu's opt for a Choice Scarf on these builds, just to give a little bit more speed. And then at the same time, again, now you have access to the fake out pressure along with the surging strikes. But pretty much, we've even made this into a rental, I believe, just to have something to start with as far as Regulation D. But if you look at all the tournaments that have transpired, within the past month, you'll always see a team like this, especially on like high ladder play. It's just a very solid, consistent team. It's easy to pilot, but you also need a little bit more skill to be able to perfect a team like this, even though it is easy to pick up. But at the same time, you can see its strengths. Again, we already discussed Dragonite, Chien-Pao, and Chien-Pao just makes Dragonite along with Urshifu, and now Rillaboom just do extra damage. You have a special attacking presence with Flutter Mane and Heatran, and now you have also something to play into the Trick Room games because you have Substitute, and then at the same time, just 6 strong Pokemon that deal a bunch of damage together, right? And that's really all there is to say about this particular team. And again, if you want to try out something like this, again, we put out a rental, so if you want to try it out, take a look at our rental video, and then just pick up one of these. But yeah, this is definitely without a doubt one of the top 10 squads. All right, let's keep on going to the next one. Next up, the Zapdos Balance idea with Landorus to join the fray is another one that I consider one of the best, just because Zapdos, not only the fact that it gives you speed control with Tailwind, but now you also get longevity with Roost. And then if you just go with a relatively physically bulky set with Rocky Helmet, now all of a sudden these Urshifus, these Rillabooms, these Dragonite and Chien-Paos, they have a bit of trouble against the Zapdos, especially if you have Terra Steel to be able to take those ice type attacks. But even without the Terra, you're built and Eevee to be able to at least take one Ice Spinner for that matter, right? So Zapdos exerts a pretty good amount of offensive pressure, but also gives you support with Tailwind, just because a lot of these options are like middle tier Pokemon. They would very much appreciate the Tailwind just to face the mirror, right? And again, we discussed the Urshifu, Rillaboom, and Heatran, that Fire, Water, Grass core that you'll see a lot. And then of course Flutter Mane here, and then just providing extra speed control with Icy Wind is also a great idea here. But then at the end, we have Landorus here, and in July we made a rental like this with these same 5, but instead of the Landorus, we used the other genie, Tornadus, and the idea with that was to be able to provide Rain Dance so that Rillaboom and Heatran are taking less damage. I'm sorry, the Rillaboom is taking less damage against fire type attacks, but at the same time, your Urshifu is doing more damage, and your Zapdos has 100% accurate rain. 100% accurate Hurricane, I would say. But now you add Landorus, and now you add Intimidate to the team. You add another aggressive attacker as opposed to the Tornadus, which can be somewhat a little bit passive at times. But you get an Assault Vest user, you know, with Terra Blast, Rock Slide, U-Turn, and Stomping Tantrum. So now you have something against another Heatran. You have something against another Iron Hands, for example. Good Intimidate support against something like Ursaluna teams. Just in general, a very, very good Pokemon to, you know, just utilize. And now you get another pivot option with U-Turn along with the Rillaboom. So you get 2 pivoters on the team, which is great in terms of positioning. And just overall, again, like another solid balanced team, just like our original Standard 6. But in this sense, you know, it functions a little bit differently just because the Zapdos and Landorus give you some play that maybe is not quite available if you were playing the Standard 6, as I call it. All right. But yeah, another very, very good one. So if you're a fan of Zapdos, definitely try this one out. There is a rental as well. If you look on Cybertron's channel, he featured it a couple of days ago. No, actually maybe about a week or so. So if you want to pick up this squad, definitely pick it up and give it a go. Next up is the Cresselia Ursaluna archetype, and I always feel like the best Crest Ursaluna teams are the ones that feature Iron Hands and Amoonguss, right? This is your starting 4 because they just provide so much balance overall to the archetype. Like Iron Hands gives you fake out pressure, gives you a heavy slam into like an opposing Flutter Mane matchup. It's great into the Urshifu Rapid Strike matchup. And then you have a Drain Punch against Heatran, right? It's just a jack of all trades. I call it like the most balanced Pokemon in Regulation D, just because it offers so much against the entire format, right? And then at the same time, you get another Trick Room Sweeper along with the Ursaluna, right? And then Cresselia can also help it out by just healing it. Because think about it, you do Wild Charge damage to yourself, but then Ursaluna can just heal that back with Lunar Blessing, right? So there's some good synergy here. And then, of course, Amoonguss does relatively well on teams like this. You know, especially in Trick Room, you're just able to spore things, and then some of your physical options can just take advantage and set up against them, and you know, just dominate. Especially like Ursaluna. Can you imagine like Spore and then just click Bulk Up, and then from there Ursaluna just able to really, really dominate. And then you just have your 2 special attackers with Flutter Mane and Heatran. I would say this Heatran slot is the most flexible one. I've seen people use Landorus in this slot. I've seen even myself use Gyarados in this slot. But overall, this is the most flexible slot. Depending on how you want to play it, you'll see some variants here. Even the Urshifu works here as well. So, you know, there's some ideas if you want to have a little bit of variance. But at the very least, this 5 Pokemon core, you know, with this Cresselia Ursaluna team functions very, very well. Okay, you get Trick Room mode, of course, but then, of course, the Flutter Mane and even the Heatran can just offer a little bit more of a faster mode, and it gives you another, you know, special attacking presence with these 2. Whereas, like, you got the physical options covered with Ursaluna and Iron Hands, and then the support options covered by Cresselia and Amoonguss, right? It's one of my favorite archetypes to play, and I think it is my favorite overall, just because of the amount of balance it can give you and just multiple ways that it can be played, right? You can just simply lead Cresselia Ursaluna. You could do Iron Hands Crest. You could even do Amoonguss plus Flutter Mane, Amoonguss Heatran. Those leads also work as well. Just depending on the matchup, you have a lot of different play, but definitely without a doubt has some really, really good tournament results already across the board. So definitely one of the best archetypes, I would say, in Regulation D. So yeah, let's keep going. Next up is this Regidrago team. This is what I believe to be the best team that Tornadus can do well on at their given moment. So if you just take a look at the Poke page just real quick, again, with this kind of squad, Regidrago does very, very well, especially with Goldango. I always feel like right now you want to start with these 3 if you want to do like Regidrago. Like the fact that you can spam Dragon Energy along with Make It Rain, that's a very, very hard thing to switch into, right? Because think about it, what is the only thing that can really switch into a Dragon Energy effectively? A Fairy type, right? But then at the same time, you just click Make It Rain, and then now that Fairy type is taking steel damage. So it's actually very, very difficult to switch into if you can ever, you know, do that kind of combination, I would say. And then Tornadus, of course, just gives the Regidrago and Goldango the speed that they need to be able to do this damage, especially Regidrago, because, you know, you don't want to be taking chip damage and then clicking Dragon Energy because it just doesn't work that way. But at the same time, you know, you have a lot of other options on the teams, particularly the Farigiraf, right? So shout outs to Eric Rios, by the way, for this type of team. It's really, really good. But the Farigiraf just gives the team an out against, you know, these Trick Room teams. Not only that, but also against priority, right? Because what does Regidrago suffer against? Priority mons, right? Because if you just click Ice Spinner, I'm sorry, not Ice Spinner, Sucker Punch, or like any kind of, you know, neutral priority move, the Regidrago will take chip damage, and then Dragon Energy just doesn't do as much damage. But then you just switch in the Farigiraf, and now those priority moves are gone, and you don't have anything to really stop the Regidrago if it has the speed against you, for that matter, right? Speaking of speed, Scarf Urshifu will win the mirror matchup, and then of course we already know what Rillaboom can do. Fake Out plus Dragon Energy is actually very, very strong. Fake Out, Make It Rain, also very, very strong. And then at the same time, Rocky Helmet, bulky Farigiraf to be able to deny, Dragonite, Chien-Pao, Urshifu teams, especially the Urshifu that wants to try and get rid of this. It's very, very punishing if you can just use Rocky Helmet and then just finish off the Urshifus, with something like Dazzling Gleam per se, right? So definitely one of the best offensive teams, hyper offensive teams. I would say this is it. So if you're trying to pick up hyper offense, definitely give Regidrago, Goldango, Farigiraf a go. Next up is what I think is Tornadus' second best archetype, and that is Dondozo. Ladies and gentlemen, like I said, Dondozo has slowly crept its way back into the meta. And if you look at some of the latest tournaments within the last few weeks, you can see Dondozo topping, okay? And it's expected, right? Look at this, right? You have Dondozo Glimmora coming back yet again. They've already been very good in Regulation C, along with Fluttermane and Chi-Yu. So let's bring that concept back, and now we just add more speed by clicking Tailwind with Tornadus, right? And now the Dondozo can't really be outsped anymore, even though its speed is very, very low, even with the +2 commander boost. Now you just add Tornadus in the beginning, and if it dies, you just bring in Dondozo, and you have complete speed control overall. But then at the same time, now you just add Sunny Day to this Tornadus, and now all of a sudden, Glimmora is taking less damage from Urshifu's Surging Strikes damage, and then Fluttermane gets enabled because of photosynthesis, and then Chi-Yu also gets enabled because you are a fire type. Clicking fire type attacks in the sun, also going to be doing extra damage, and then at the same time, Chi-Yu can help Tornadus do more damage in itself, right, because of Beads of Ruin. So now these Bleak Windstorms are going to be hurting like a truck. So good synergy all around, with this type of team, and it's no doubt that, or no question that this type of Dondozo team has been doing relatively well, especially with like Earthquake damage with Terra Grass. That makes things very difficult and harder to deal with overall. Now this is where you have to have your Amoonguses use Clear Smog, or maybe you bring back Haze on something like your Chien-Pao, for example. But either way, Dondozo is back, okay? And you're going to see quite a few of them within the World Championships. Mark my words. All right, let's keep going. All right, next up is Rain. And Rain, I would say right now, is the best weather. In particular, this Basculegion Rain team. Basculegion Rain teams are running around everywhere, but this in particular has had the most success. And right now, it does relatively well. This is Devin's team, and if you don't know Devin, you can find this rental within the Victory Road website, so shout outs to them. But basically, you already got your key 4 here with Pelipper, Basculegion, and then Amoongus along with the Thunderous, right? So a lot of damage comes out with the Thunderous, especially with Choice Specs, Wild Bolt Storm, 100% accurate in the rain. But then Basculegion, clicking Last Respects in the end game when allies have fallen just does so much damage, and we already know what it can do in terms of its ability with Swift Swim. So it's just a very, very hyper aggressive, squad. But then it also has like a slower mode to it, especially with the Amoongus and even the Hisuian Gujar, right? So you're able to set up Shelter and click Body Presses, and then as well as Heavy Slam for the opposing Fluttermane matchup. You can play that mode, but then at the same time, you have your own Fluttermane, and especially on their Tailwind, you can just win the mirror altogether, right? But you have a Dragon Fairy Steel Core over here, with Gudra and the Fluttermane, and then at the same time you got a water type, you got a grass type. You don't really have a fire type here, but that's okay. It doesn't really matter a whole lot. But in terms of like this Pelipper here, Sash, Helping Hand, just goes a long way, especially when you're next to Basculegion and even the Fluttermane damage over here. It just does relatively well here. Helping Hand, Wild Bolt Storm is also very, very strong. Terra, Grass Knot is also very good into certain ground types. That being said, you do have a lot of water type pressure on this team, but again, just a very, very good solid rain team. And again, pick up the rental on the Victory Road website if you want to try it out, if you haven't done so already. But this is without a doubt right now the best type of rain team, and it has the most results. So yeah, give it a go. Next up is Michael's team with Dragapult, Chien-Pao, right? We already know what this combination can do thanks to, Justin Tang from Regulation C, but now we see them come back yet again in Regulation D, and now we just add Farigiraf onto a core like this. And similar to how the Regidrago team works, Dragapult being the fastest dragon, makes you, again, also faster than Flutter Mane for that matter. You're able to just do so much damage with Chien-Pao, especially Dragon Darts. And then you still have, things like, Phantom Force, and even Terra Blast, Terra Ghost is a very, very good move. But again, just another very balanced squad with Flutter Mane plus Heatran, Rillaboom. And then at the same time, now you can pretty much just deny Trick Room teams, with Trick Room in Prison, with the Ferrograph. Priority moves against Dragapult. You can counter that, again, with the Ferrograph switching in thanks to Armor Tail. And then at the same time, even within the Trick Room matchup, you can just click Substitute Flutter Mane. And that can also be used to stall against other Tailwind teams for that matter, right? So, on the physical end, you got Dragapult, Chien-Pao, and Rillaboom. Chien-Pao and Rillaboom is also a pretty good combination. Fake Out hurts. And then at the same time, Icicle Crash, along with Crunch as a good tech move here, with Stomping Tantrum as your ground tech here. These are all like very, very good options. And then at the same time, Assault Vest Heatran is also quite good. It lets you take a lot of hits on the special end that maybe you shouldn't be living, but then now with the Assault Vest, you can do relatively well. And you get Heat Wave, Flash Cannon, and Earth Power. These are all moves that you really want on Heatran, because again, the steel coverage is always appreciated. You don't have it here. There's no Goldengo. So Flash Cannon, very, very much appreciated. And then Terra Blast, Terra Grass against, something like the Urshifu matchup. Also to get around Amoonguss is also very, very good for that matter. So yeah, Dragapult, Chien-Pao, this team in particular, definitely one of the best 10, I would say, which is why I'm putting it in this video. So yeah. Okay, in terms of hard Trick Room teams, this is one of the easiest ones to use. It's one of the most linear ones, but again, it's also very, very effective. You'll see it quite a bit within tournaments, get some good results. It revolves around this idea of Indeedee-Armarouge or Indeedee-Hatterene with Torkoal in the back, along with Ursaluna, right? So, you have a Trick Room setter, a bulky one with Indeedee with Psychic Terrain, so this way you can deny those priority moves from Dragonite and Chien-Pao. Yes, they have Ice Spinner, but you can always play around with that. And then at the same time, you get Armarouge, which is really good in Regulation D as opposed to Regulation C, where there's too much dark types around, there's too much Ting-Lu. There's no Ting-Lu this time around. And now Armarouge all of a sudden looks really, really good again, especially with like Expanding Force, a boosted Expanding Force damage. So, take that with what you will. And then against some of the few dark types that are running around, you have Hatterene here. Also, you can underspeed Amoonguss in Trick Room, which is also really, really good. You can just spam Psychic against it, and then from there, you're actually just kind of chilling. Ursaluna, we already know what this thing can do. This is your physical sweeper. Swords Dance on a team like this is actually really, really nice. We did that in a similar concept with the Iron Hands on a hard Trick Room team like this. But Swords Dance, Facade does very, very well. If you even think of Intimidate spamming the Ursaluna, you just simply go for Swords Dance, and you're just kind of chilling from there. Then you also have like the quote-unquote fast mode of the team with the Hisui and Lilligant Torkoal combination. You just click after you Eruption, and you just say, hey, what's up? What do you got against this? Then you also have the Sleep Powder shenanigans, and then from there you also can click Solar Blade, which I like a whole lot better than Leaf Storm from the regular Lilligant. So this is actually really, really nice. So now you get an aggressive grass option that you can take advantage of. But just overall, a really fun and easy team to pilot. I believe Len VGC released this team first, so if you want to try that one out, I believe he released that rental back in like late June. So definitely give it a go, and it's still good even now, right? Which just goes to show you that a team that can withstand the ends of time and still be consistent and still win ladder tournaments. Not ladder tournaments, but best of 3 tournaments means it's a very, very good, effective squad. All right, next up here, this is what I call like a little bit of a sleeper team, I would say, but it's this Galarian Moltres team with Grimmsnarl and Spectrier. And what really makes this team really, really good is actually this Nasty Plot Spectrier set that's supported by the Arcanine and the Grimmsnarl. Because Spectrier, is a little bit frail, right? But then all of a sudden you add screen support, and then you add Intimidate support with the Arcanine, and then now the Spectrier gets a little bit hard to remove, and then you can just set up Nasty Plots and steamroll after you just pick up KOs after KOs with Shadow Balls and Draining Kiss for longevity, right? If you get chipped a lot, you can just click Draining Kiss, and then you recover so much, and then you just stay on the field, and then you could just potentially sweep teams, right? The Moltres, this is a Chesto Berry rest set, so at the same time you've taken so much damage, then you activate Berserk, but then you just heal right back up with Rest and Chesto Berry. So then from there, you can enjoy the fruits of the Berserk benefits, right? Because you've recovered so much. And then at the same time, you've got Gastrodon here for support, especially for the Hisuian Arcanine, because this being weak to Urshifu, now you have Gholdengo as well as a close combat switch in, and then against Surging Strikes, you have a Gastrodon here, which can click Yawn and force switches, which means you can potentially get away with a nasty plot per se, right? If you can just force them to switch because they have to play passive. And then at the same time, you know, Grimmsnarl / Gastrodon can give you some leverage in those Trick Room games because they may get their sweeper in, but if they're asleep, then the sweeper just doesn't do any damage, right? Because of the yawn pressure that you have. And then from there, you can kind of just stall it out. But this is, again, you know, I see people play this team quite a bit on the best of 3 tours on Limitless. They do relatively well, and you know, for good reason. You have a lot of that you have a lot to take advantage of, you know, on a team like this. You have support here with Grimmsnarl and the Arcanine. You have an offensive presence with the Moltres and the Spectrier and the Gholdengo here, especially Choice Specs Gholdengo. So all in all, just a very, very good solid team. It's like a sleeper pick in my opinion, in terms of like the top 10. Coming up here in number 10, and it's actually a Regulation C team, and it's actually a team with you know, made by Neil and also used extensively by Jude. But basically, the way Neil constructed this team is, you know, how do you support Roaring Moon here, and how do you just overall deal so much damage here with the Chew and the Fluttermane, right? Well, it all comes down to this Amoonguss, Gyarados, and Iron Hands support, because what you're able to do is just, you know, click Fake Out or click Redirection with the Amoonguss, set up the Dragon Dance, and then you just outspeed the entire format, and you're just dealing so much damage because you're Adamant Nature most likely. And Adamant Nature with a +1 boost from not only Booster Energy, but from Dragon Dance, you can just one-shot a lot of different things. And then at the same time, you have a good special attack presence with Chew and Fluttermane. You do so much damage. The Amoonguss gives you something to play within the Trick Room matchup, as well as the Iron Hands. And then Gyarados, just overall a very balanced Pokemon, especially against like Ursaluna, good against Landorus, Intimidate support like we mentioned. Then you have Thunder Wave for speed control, and as well as paralysis hacks. Then Taunt to deny Amoonguss, Tide to deny Trick Room teams, Taunt to deny you know, Hisui and Gudra plays, right? So Gyarados is like almost like the glue with Iron Hands and Amoonguss that makes all of these offensive bonds do the job that they need to do, right? They need support, right? They're a little bit flimsy, but Gyarados and Amoonguss, they can take care of that, as well as this Fake Out pressure. And then from there, Roaring Moon, Chew, and Fluttermane, they're the ones that are going to be dealing the damage on a team like this. And, you know, Neil won a tournament with this, all right? As did Jude, I believe. Either he won it or he got, like, you know, top cut results and even got, like, second place. So it's a team that is proven to work. I've seen other people use it besides those two use it, and they've done relatively well. And, you know, it's always nice and satisfying to see that a team that doesn't use any Regulation D Pokemon can still do well, which means it's a very, very good squad, all right? But yeah, those are our 10. Let me know what you think of the squads that we've selected, and if you agree with them or disagree with them, and if there's a team that we in particular left out that has been doing well up until this point, let me know in the comment section. But if you're interested in building, you know, teams like this where we just also showcase and teach you how to do EV spreads from scratch, definitely sign up on the channel with the tier 3 sub. If you look in the video description below, as well as the comment section, there is a link to join the channel for coaching in terms of team building. We've done a lot of it, you know, not only throughout Regulation D, but even in previous formats. We've sent people to regionals. We've got them, you know, championship points because that is exactly what they were looking for. So we gave them nice, good, strong, competitive squads. And if that is something you're interested in as well, whether it be for ladder play, whether it be for an online tournament or some premier challenge that you're trying to prep for, definitely consider signing up for coaching on the channel. All right, we'll be back with another video, the next one. Enjoy the World Championships, ladies and gentlemen. Peace out and have a good one.